Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I'm the Stretch Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the patch notes for 12.22. So, as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. It's easy, it's quick, just takes a couple of clicks. And I am going to be more consistent with the content. I know over the last month or so, I haven't done as many patch notes, tier lists, all that stuff. But I am going to be more consistent with it in the preseason. And I might try to see if I can play a little bit more at night, too. I know I've had some abridged play times. So we'll see if we can at least get back to that 11 to 2 kind of area and at least give you guys a few hours. So stop on by the stream if you want. It's only on YouTube. You can always watch the replay, and I'm going to try to get back to putting the timestamps in there too so you can see which champions I play. Now that can't come out until after YouTube processes it the next day, but I'll try to have those, ready to go maybe 8 or 9 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. So if you don't have time to watch the whole thing, you can still go through and say, okay, this is a game where he played something that's not Recon, or he played a Heimer game or whatever, if there's something special that you're looking for. But do come by and check out the live content sometime. We've got a great community, and I'd love to chat with you while we're playing. Okay, let's go ahead and get in here. So I will preface by saying that I think this is probably the most disappointing preseason initial information in the 12 seasons I've played since season 1. This might literally be the most disappointing. So we'll look at it. I don't think it's going to actively make the game that much worse. I just think that a lot of what they're doing is going to be neutral to potentially, making it a little bit worse in some respects. So we'll get through. I hope they change a lot of it. I'm still optimistic. I'm going to be playing the game. As you guys know, I'm basically like a cheerleader for League. I've been playing it for 12 years. As I said, I think it's a great game. I don't think it's dying. I think it's really fun. I think it's awesome. But these are disappointing. I try to be real with you guys. I try to be honest and sort of just talk about my take on stuff. And that's just how it is. So there are a couple of gems in there. So let's go through and see what we have. Let's see what's working. And I'll make some suggestions as we go for maybe some stuff that I hope they might change about it that could redeem some of these things. Okay. So first up, they're trying to redo the Chemtech Drake. First of all, I just wouldn't even bring this back up, right? Because this was one of the big balance failures of the last preseason. People hated this. If you can't remember the original Drake, it pretty much, people hated the terrain and they hated the soul. So the terrain created this fog in all of the jungle, which was just insane for assassins. It was just an absolute nightmare for supports because you couldn't do anything in there or you would die, and your wards didn't give vision of it either. So even if you dropped vision in that fog, you couldn't see it. It was just a really, really terrible idea that dramatically favored specific champions. So that was bad. But then they also had the zombie Drake, where if somebody died and you had that soul, then they got to come back to life for a limited amount of time, got all their abilities, and got to keep fighting. So it was the most overpowered objective almost ever in League. I mean, it was right there with bannered super minions, baroned up super minions. So it was really, really bad. So they just got rid of it. And they almost never do that with anything. They almost never just straight up delete something. But they just could not figure out a way to fix it. So I think from a marketing perspective, I just wouldn't even call it Chemtech Drake. It is very different from the old one. I just wouldn't even do it, because it's going to dredge up those memories. I mean, what they're trying to do, and they set it up here, is they're trying to create a redemption arc for it. So they're hoping that it looks like, okay, we screwed up. We've got a good version now. I guess they just don't want to let it go. But I think honestly, just letting it go and just not reminding people of that is probably the better play. But anyways, so what does it do now? I mean, it from a lore perspective, it does fit in, with what they're trying to do from a war perspective with Zon and all that, Singed and where a lot of those people are from. So it does have some war implications, I guess, too. But okay. Chemtech. When Chemtech Drake is below half health, it gains 33% damage resistance and deals 50% more damage, and it does a certain percentage of the target's health as physical damage with each attack. I'm assuming that's max health. And you'll see a lot of the monsters doing that, and I'm not sure why. I guess they just want to not give tanks a big advantage because they want this to be difficult to tank no matter what. Which is maybe going to favor lower health champions with lifesteal and things like that, because they're going to be getting hit for less as far as percentage of health. So it's a really kind of weird change. I guess they just are trying to make the damage relevant for anybody. So it becomes tougher to kill and deals 50% more damage. So I'm not sure, like, why that is. Like, what's the balancing purpose? Like, you can get it low, but then it makes it more dangerous to try to take it, because if you try to solo it, you might die. They can just come in and kill you at the end. But why not just have it do more damage in general? I don't know. It's a little weird, but okay. When your team kills the Drake, they gain a stacking buff that grants 5 tenacity and 5% healing and shielding. Okay, so that to me just seems weird, because it feels like those are just very different kinds of champs. I mean, I guess those types of champs, so like your Sejuani plus Soraka, you know, those types of champs that would benefit from these things, kind of go hand in hand in 5v5 front to back team fight comps, but it requires like a very specific kind of comp to really take advantage of this. You know, a lot of champions in League of Legends, like your Yasuo's, your Zeds, your Rivens, Fioras, a lot of those champs are just not going to benefit from this, and very few champs are going to fully benefit from it, where they like both of those stats. There will be some, I mean, obviously something like Mundo or whatever is going to like it, but I mean, I guess a lot of the Zon champs would like it. Singe would probably like it. But it just feels weird that like half of it's going to be wasted on the champions that it benefits, where almost every other Drake, you know, champs may not be fully optimal with whatever, with like Fire Drake, tanks may not be fully optimal with Fire Drake. And same thing like DPS, maybe not with Mountain Drake, but at least it's like very symmetrical. Like they're all getting some kind of benefit out of it. It feels like this is, you know, virtually nothing or very limited. I don't know. It's a weird combination. Like, why both of those stats? Why not just like focus on one? Is this tanky? Is this supposed to be like a tanky dragon, or is this like a sustained dragon? But it's kind of a little bit of both, so it's weird. Okay, if you get the soul, upon receiving, the soul players receive a buff where it gives them 10% damage resistance and 10% more damage while below 50% health. Again, that seems very specific. Like, the 10% damage resistance, okay, so it's kind of just doing the similar thing to Mountain Drake. But the 10% more damage below 50% is like, I don't know, there are some champs that like the Olaf, someone's called this the Olaf dragon. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what it is. But it's just really weird. Like, what niche is this trying to fit? Like, the other ones, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, Fire Drake, okay, you want poke champions, or you want some kind of burst offensive champions. Mountain Drakes, you want tanks. It's really good against poke. You know, Water Drake is sustained. That one's super hard to balance, too. I don't like Water Drake's balance, but it gives you sustain over time, and then Wind Drake, you know, gives you more cooldowns, gives you movement speed. So a lot of them have a clear identity, a clear theme that is separate and distinct from the others. I guess the lightning one is kind of weird. Like, it has poke and like slow, so it's got a little bit of utility to it. So that one's a little weird. But it's like, why do we need another dragon? There's already 5. Like, what kind of diversity are we trying to add here? Anyways, so the Chemtech Rift, it's like mutating all of the plants. So the stem fruits give you like a bonus shield and more health. The blast cones blast you further, and the fire bloom reduces wards HP to 1, and your allies gain movement speed. So that's pretty cool. I like the jungle stuff. That's good. I think that adds a little bit more fun, a little bit more diversity to the jungle. But if this is it, if it's like, okay, this stuff is supposed to be like, you know, toxic but helps people grow, like, why not make the soul something like everybody gets bigger in size, and, you know, get something like whenever they get hit, then they, you know, heal up a certain amount over time. Or they get enraged whenever they attack something. The longer they stay in combat, the more stats they get over time. They get a stacking health regen buff the longer they're in combat, or they get stacking resistances or something like that. That would actually be kind of interesting, because that would say we want a longer fight, and the longer we can stick to you and stay in combat, the bigger our bonus is going to be. Up to a cap or something. You know, not OP, but I think just themed around that, that would be unique. To say, all right, we're staying in combat, we're gaining stuff. Or again, if the thing is like stuff is like mutated and just becomes stronger, just something thematic around players where they become stronger when they get hit. Maybe they regenerate so much damage, kind of like second wind after they get hit. I think healing is problematic. I talked about that with Water Drake in general. But just getting some kind of stacking buff would make more sense than this. I mean, I guess, like, okay, you are healing more, you are resistant to being slowed. I guess thematically it does kind of fit, so it's not bad. This is just, like, neutral. Like, for me, like, this change is neutral. It's like, did we really need another dragon? The jungle thing's kind of cool, but whatever. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just kind of, I don't think it's going to change that much of the meta. Really, the drakes don't change that much. I don't think that there might be some cases where people prioritize getting Rift over a dragon or something, but I think that's more tempo-oriented rather than specific Drake-oriented. I think if people have the kind of comp where they want to snowball hard, it doesn't matter what that dragon is, like the second dragon, or whatever. They're just going to prioritize Rift over dragon no matter what because of their team comp. So I think there's not that much strategic sacrifice of dragons anymore. I think they're just always something that you want. And it doesn't really become that relevant until you get to Soul, and then it's like, all right, we got to make some choices here. So it's okay. The jungle changes, like as I've talked about in the past when they did this originally, they're trying to basically make different maps without making different maps. Because a lot of games, almost every game except for League of Legends and like Dota, has different maps. And I think they should do different maps. It is hard to balance 160 champions on 5 different maps or whatever that you could have for a season, but I think having seasonal maps could be cool, and even maps for different splits. If they really want to like create an identity for a split, they could use a different map, kind of like what they're doing with Star Guardians, or not Star Guardians, TFT. Now I don't know if they could disable certain champions over time. I think that would be cool, but that's going to feel really bad for people too who have bought all those champs, especially newer players, people that are one tricks, people that have 15 skins, luck skins or whatever. That's going to feel bad. So I don't know if they're ever going to disable champs like they do with TFT, because you don't have to buy those champs in TFT. That's the big difference, and you don't have skins for them. But I like the idea of shaking it up somewhat from the first to the third split, especially for people that have been playing a long time, just adding something different. So this is their answer. They're trying to make the map feel different after the second dragon dies to open up some new opportunities. I still wish they would tell you what it's going to be in Champ Select so you could plan around that. Okay, it's going to be water map, or okay, it's going to be fire map. Then that would add like less RNG to the experience, especially at high level pro play where it might actually matter if it's water drake or fire drake in some circumstances. But anyways, I wish they would do different maps, but that's just kind of a wish list. At least one seasonal map. Right, even if you can't balance them all at the same time, just have a different seasonal map that shakes stuff up a little bit. I think could be fun. At least try it out. Why not? Just try it out in normals or something. I mean, they've done that, or try it out in flex maybe. They've done that with the for fun game modes, but to some extent. But I don't know. I think they should explore that in the future at some point. Okay, jungle changes. So there's a million here, and honestly, there's so many changes, it's really hard to sort of predict exactly what the meta champion is going to be. But the TLDR is, I think it's going to favor hyper-scaling champions and champions that historically have been vulnerable to aggression that are now going to get a safety blanket, a bunch of safety blankets because of this. You got stuff like Karthus, maybe Evelynn. Evelynn, I don't like Evelynn when she's meta. I know Toos loves Evelynn, but like I think a lot of these champs that are hard farm, non-interactive champions are just bad for the game. I think that meta is a lot worse than the, Lee Sin versus Jarvan meta. I think people like those types of things a lot more, where it's like high risk, high reward champions that, need to be able to gank early, that are very, high skill cap. But the problem is, and why they're changing this, is, and I know a lot of elite junglers are not going to like this. There's probably going to be a lot of hate, I would imagine. I haven't watched a lot of other content creators, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of hate from top-end players, top-end junglers about this. But the truth of the matter is jungle is a terrible experience for the vast, vast majority of players. That's it. And Riot is very aware of that. Jungle is the second least played role next to support. It's usually very close to support. I've had people tell me jungle is even less played, and every time we've looked that up, that hasn't been true. But it's trending down for sure. Like, people don't like jungle. And some of that is just structural to the game, or I guess like community driven in the game, where the jungler gets blamed for everything because they're perceived to have the most power to do anything about anything, right? So you're losing your lane. It could, in theory, easily, well, not easily, but it could be saved if the jungler just sat on you the whole game and basically carried you through your lane. Then you could win your lane. And people just pick off-meta garbage champions sometimes, or they just have a bad game and they get behind, and then they expect the jungler to bail them out. And that just it gets flamed more than any other role by far. In my experience, the jungler just has to deal with so much garbage, and on top of that, it's really hard to play to begin with. I think it's the hardest, at least from a knowledge perspective, role to play, because there are so many different things you could be doing. You could be invading the enemy jungle. You could be farming your jungle. You could be ganking one of the 3 lanes. There are different ways you could gank the lane. Are you going to try to come through the river? Are you going to go through the lane? What's the vision situation? Are you going to try to sneak an objective or not? There's so many different things. Versus in lane, it's pretty obvious most of the time what you should be doing, especially at lower level play. You just hit a lot of CS, and if you see an opportunity, you fight the other person. That's it, right? At higher level play, maybe there's roam timings and, you know, all of that, but for the vast majority of people, it's very straightforward. The jungle, not so much. So it's hard. It gets a lot of hate all the time. So way more harassment than any other role. It is challenging to execute from a knowledge perspective. And if you get behind, it feels absolutely horrible. Like, it's almost impossible to get back in the game. So if you screw up a gank on the bot side of the map, and the enemy jungler takes your top side, takes all 3 of your camps on the top side, and then grabs Rift Herald or something, it's almost GG. You know, even at lower levels of play, because you're going to be down in levels, you're down in gold, and you're down in objectives. So it's very, very punishing if you screw up in the jungle. And then late game, even if you're doing all right, like, people just come in and take all your stuff. I mean, that's kind of a fourth one, is they go in, they take all your raptors, and you're not supposed to take their lane you're not supposed to take their camps either, or their minions in the lane, or they'll freak out. But they can come in and take your raptors, or take your golems, take your gromp, take your buffs, everything. So you're just, like, starved at the end. So really, to take over the game early, you need to probably be playing some kind of carry jungler to make sure that you don't get invaded and killed, or to make sure that you convert on those ganks to make up for the fact that you're probably going to lose your top side jungle or your bot side jungle or whatever, cross map how the enemy jungler is going to counter you. Or if they show up at the same time you do, that you're going to be able to win the fight. So you need to take something early that can dominate early a lot of times, but then you fall off really hard if you do that later, because you're going to lose all your camps. So you're just in a really weird spot as a jungler. So that's just kind of the truth, and that's how it is, and that's really, really bad for attracting new players to want to play that role, right? Because it's like, hey man, do you want to play this role where you're going to get blamed for everything that's super hard, that's a terrible experience, especially if you fall behind? And even if you stay even, everyone's going to take all your crap at the end of the game, and you're just going to have no agency. So that's the bottom line, is with a lot of these changes, they want to make a better experience. They want to try to guarantee that you're not going to be punished as hard if you screw up. And they want to try to encourage people to give you those resources to not take all of your camps later on in the game, and to kind of smooth it out, not make it as extreme. So for high-end junglers, that sucks, because you're not going to be able to invade and completely shut people out of the game. They're going to be able to get back in. It's going to be harder to take their camps and fight them. But for everybody else who's not a challenger jungler, then it's going to allow for a little bit of a better experience, for you to be more relevant in the game, for you to make a couple of macro mistakes on the map and still be able to be relevant in the game. So overall, this is good for the vast majority of the player base. So it's bad for people that like stomping noobs in the jungle, basically, but it's good for everybody else, and they need to get those numbers up. Because if nobody plays jungle, we don't get the queues anymore. You get 20-minute queue times because there's like 2 junglers on the server. at an extreme level, right? So I know that if you play jungle and you are elite and you like to smurf in the jungle or whatever, this is not good news for you. But if you're someone who's wanted to play the jungle but you're just too scared, or you get your ass kicked every time you try to play in the jungle, not every time. I do okay with Nunu in the past, but it's a bad experience. So okay, what are they doing to try to address some of these problems that I just pointed out? All right, mark for death. When a large monster dies, all the small monsters die after 10 seconds. So this is to stop people from leaving that one raptor, pretty much, or that one wolf. Because, again, that's going to starve you out. If you get invaded, not only are you not getting most of the experience in gold, but now it's not going to respawn for an additional minute or two until you find it and clear that camp. So again, this is like one of the most punishing things you can do to enemy junglers, is take 90% of the resources and then delay the timer when they're going to get those resources again by an extra 50% or something, effectively. So they're getting rid of that. Own side clearing strength. So junglers now deal 20% more damage from non-true damage sources to monsters on their own side of the jungle. This increased damage will not apply when invading and dealing damage to enemy camps. Okay, so basically, they're increasing the health on most of the camps, I think. So basically, they're saying you're going to do effectively 20% less damage if you go into the enemy jungle. So it's going to take you a lot more time to try to steal their camp. So you can do it, but it's not going to be as effective if that's your strategy. It's just to power farm and just cross-map, invade, and take their stuff. Then it's not going to be as much of an opportunity cost if they want to gank the other side of the map. So, again, this is a hit to invading. All large monsters will now heal for a certain amount of health and restore a certain amount of mana upon takedown if you have a jungle companion. So if you're a jungler, basically. This heal and mana restoration will take form. A projectile will be fired towards the champ. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So every camp heals. So I don't know that, like, how much that is exact number-wise, right? I mean, they do tell you that, but I don't have a sense of what that is because I don't jungle a lot. But if it's probably not as much as, like, Gromp was this season. But again, that's to keep you topped off. It's to basically hold your hand, walk you through the jungle so that you're not, starting at red, pathing up to blue, and then getting invaded by the Lee Sin or the Graves on your blue when you're at 50% health and they one-shot you. Like, that's what they don't want to happen. So, again, they're making it way, way harder for people to invade, kill you, take your camps, and dominate the game. They're not completely saying you can't go over there and do that, but they're really nudging people to stay in their own, jungle. They're saying it's a lot more risk to go over there. It's a lot less likely you're going to succeed if you try to kill people because they're going to be at high health. Almost always. Any champion. Even some of the weaker junglers like Evelynn or something like that early on. Evelynn does have a self-heal, but... Okay. Camp Golden experience changes. Junglers will only gain 75 experience from lane minions before their first pet evolution unless the jungler is behind the average game level. Okay, so if you're behind, you can get some stuff from the lane, but otherwise, then you can't clear lanes. So that does take some power away from junglers, which is kind of annoying. But this is to try to balance out the fact that they're going to punish people for taking jungler stuff. So they want to punish junglers for taking lane stuff. That's how it is. So again, high-level people are not going to like this because... they're going to say, well, if I get a successful gank off, then I need to be able to get that experience from the lane when I help push it to make up for the fact that they're probably taking my camps on the other side of the map. So now you could potentially fall behind a little bit. But again, they're balancing that by saying, okay, it's going to take them longer to kill those camps. They may not be able to do all three of them before you can get back in the jungle and do something. So, yeah. So, again, high-level jungler is not going to like this, but it is taking away some early benefits from just turbo ganking lanes without farming your own camps. They're encouraging people to clear their camps. Which, again, favors scaling junglers, which is where we're going to talk to. That's the TLDR that I said before. Early game, high-pressure, high-skill cap junglers are punished. Turbo farm junglers are going to be rewarded. The Karthuses, Evelynn, Graves can still, scale pretty well. We might have an Udyr Hecarim meta again. That was one of the worst metas we've had in a long time earlier this last season, so we'll see. All large monster experience given to non-junglers has been reduced by 15 experience except for Ancient Krug, which has been reduced by 12. So again, I don't know exactly what those numbers mean in terms of percentages. I don't think it's that much, though. It's like a little bit less, right? But most of those camps give like, what, 100 experience or something, at least? So I'm not sure what they're trying to do there, because they need to make it a percentage, because at like 25 or 30 minutes into the game, people are still going to come take your raptors. Like your mid laner is going to come get your raptors or your wolves with this number, because 15 is not that much. It's like, on paper, yes, it's not as efficient. Now it's like less efficient, but they're still going to do it, because a lot of times the gold matters more on junglers or AD carries or whatever, because historically they're higher scaling champions than most junglers. Not all junglers, but most junglers. So I don't know. This is just going to give people something to, complain about again. Junglers saying, hey, don't take my raptors. You're denying the team 15 experience. It's not enough. They need to say, if they really want laners to stay out of the jungle, they need to say it's like 50% less. If you don't have the pet, if you don't have the companion, the jungle item, whatever, then you get a lot less experience in gold. If that's what their goal is. This 15, it doesn't matter. I don't think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think it matters. Large monster experience. All large monsters now give an additional 15 experience if you have the jungle companion. Okay, so it's a 30 XP swing, effectively. Again, early game, yeah, it might dissuade. You could make an argument, yeah, in the first like 5 levels or 6 levels, then people shouldn't be taking your raptors. But I don't think that happens anyways most of the time, right? I think it's once the lanes get broken, then you have people that are like starting to take some of the jungle camps, because they can't safely go up in the lane, and they can't keep pushing at a certain point once everything's pushed. So I see what they're doing. I guess I kind of like the idea to help junglers out, but I just don't think it's big enough. I think they're going to have to, if that's their goal, they're going to have to increase that penalty. Okay, Blue Sentinel, a lot more health, and attack damage is lower. And the Blue Sentinel deals 5% of current health to the target on hit. Okay, so again, it is like damaging tanks a bit more. So I'm not sure, because they want it to be safer, but now the camps are doing more damage. But as you can see, they have a lot more HP. So again, you're going to get that 20%, which 20% of like 2,000 is 400. So I don't know the exact number on that, but it's pretty close. It's a little bit more durable, but you're going to kill it in a similar amount of time as you currently do. But if someone invades and tries to take your blue, then it's going to take them a lot longer. Health, same drill with the Gromp. Attack damage is lower, range is lower. So these things like hit harder when you're fighting them, and they might take a little bit longer to kill, but they're going to heal you once you kill it. Well, he doesn't have the old heal, but the standard heal that they're giving. Okay, same thing with Krugs. Wolves, Raptors, Red Brambleback. It's the same kind of treatment with all of them. Now, experience given to champs within 600 units are higher, so it's 300 XP. See, that's what I'm thinking, is like Dragons and Rift give like 300. I think most large camps give like 150 or 200. So that's why I think like the 15 XP is not enough of a penalty. But you're getting 300. So now it's actually worth it to have multiple people roll over and get that, because that's like a large camp worth of XP, or like half of a large camp of XP. And that's to make up for the fact that you're losing lane experience to go help the jungler with Rift. So they want it to be more of a team effort, which is probably a good idea. Okay, the first Rift Herald does less. So I'm assuming the charge is when they hit the tower, not when they charge the champion. Yeah, because 1,500 would one-shot people. So what does that mean? Right now, it basically takes 2 plates. Is it only going to be like 1 plate? That's going to be an insane nerf if it's just 1 plate. If it's like 1.5 plates or something, and not the full 2 plates. It is very strong right now, though, so I don't know. Okay, so basically increasing XP, but nerfing the gold and tower damage you get off of Rift. I would say Rift is a little on the strong side early, so maybe that's okay overall. But if they want lanes to last longer. Okay, Spawn time 3:15 to 3:30. Okay, so again, they're giving slower junglers. They're trying to open up the jungle a little bit. Say, okay, these little slow, farm junglers will have more time. I guess farm junglers farm faster. If that's what they want, is safer junglers. A lot of those champs can farm pretty quickly. So I'm not sure what the goal is here. But 3:30 just to open it up to champs that are slower. And to give you a little bit more of a window if you want to gank and then try to get it. Health at level 1 is up like a ton. So it doesn't have the shield break anymore. So that means that champions that don't have a way to break the shield will actually be viable. Which I think is good. The whole shield mechanic on the Scuttle is just really goofy. So yeah, just give it more HP. So it's going to take longer to kill it. Like, probably a lot longer in many cases to kill it. Which, encourages this to be a team effort. And that's something that a lot of people didn't like originally about Rift Scuttle, is it felt like you had to play laners that were high priority, early game aggression laners, get your wave pushed in, and go help with Rift, because it was very important in the early game. And it looks like they're kind of going back to that. I can't remember. I don't think it's worth as many resources as it used to be, but it's definitely, there's going to be more fights around this, because people are going to have more time to show up. Like I said, at 3:30, it's going to be much more telegraphed, and that's going to give laners more time to assert dominance, potentially, and to go help fight over Rift. So I think more things that encourage people to rotate and fight are probably good, especially at a competitive level, as long as people don't snowball too hard off of it. But just giving people more stuff to do rather than sit there and just farm in the lanes, I think is good. At lower levels, it's going to generate some frustration because so many people don't understand lane priority. They don't understand rotating to help teammates and all that stuff. So, in like bronze type of stuff, maybe it's not as good, but I think overall it's probably good for the game. Okay, I don't know. I'm not doing all the math on these things, but I think the general vibe is that, they do damage as well instead of just heal you. Okay, so the extra damage on the jungler, or the extra health on the camps then, is probably mitigated by these pets doing extra damage too. So you probably actually do it a little bit faster now. And that's likely to, again, discourage laners from going in and taking your camps, because it's going to take them a lot longer to do it. Maybe that's part of their punishment system too, to try to keep resources for the junglers. Okay, and then they level up. Now, I don't know if they can die or whatever too. Presumably they have some kind of health bars. They get mana regen. Can you smite like enemy pets? Or is this just like something that... Bring smite, you'll have the option to purchase one of these things in egg form at the beginning of the game. They'll grow and evolve as you progress by getting stacks. Okay, so again, they want you to farm camps. You evolve this thing. Kept in the jungle. Yeah, so they're trying to give a little something to jungle. They're trying to do something cute too. It's like makes it a little more fun, I guess. I don't know. It's getting a little too cutesy aesthetically for me, but okay, whatever. I mean, it's basically just something, again, to hold people's hand and help them, like, have a safe jungle clear. Some of your damage is being... Okay, what do these do? After killing a monster camp, gain a health shield, or 10 seconds out of combat. Okay, so you gain this shield permanently, basically. You gain 20% tenacity and resist while the shield is present. Well, at least 2 allies are... Okay, so if you're doing Baron or Dragon, then you take less damage. Okay. Okay, they all have that, the protection buff. So they're encouraging people to be with you for the Baron or the Dragon. Okay. Ember stacks... Okay, then you do extra bonus damage. So these things not actually attack. They're just like NPC pets that give you buffs. But they increase your damage, right? One treat, blah, blah, blah. Provide their owners extra mana regen. No, they do attack. Heal their owner for 70% of the above number. Okay, so they heal. So you heal from the camp itself, and you also get additional healing while you're attacking. So that extra like percentage health damage doesn't really matter on junglers, but it's to discourage, again, laners from going into the jungle. Okay, I don't know if they can die though. It doesn't say what their HP is, so they can attack, they can interact, but I don't know if they're invulnerable or like if they can attack players or what the deal is. I guess we'll just have to see. I don't know. I'm sure other content creators will be able to tell you a more in-depth thing about that, but it's whatever, I guess. It's just another thing to make the jungle easier. Okay, soft resets. Again, you're not punished for not understanding the exact mechanics of patience, right? Which is where monsters reset. So now if you accidentally, like, something resets, you can reposition and catch it before it hard resets. Okay, so again, it's going to make it easier for people, which is good because you need people to play the jungle. So that's how it is. Again, I know challenger junglers are going to hate this, but the other 99% of players are going to like it, I think. Okay. It gives you recommended pathing too. So it's kind of telling you where you should be going. It's a lot of hand holding. Okay, extra pings. Okay. Push, all in, hold, or bait pings. Huh. That's actually kind of cool. And then the vision wheel. Now, the vision wheel is kind of cool, and this is another thing I think high-level players are going to complain about. But if you ping an area when you see a ward go down, then you get the timer on that ward. Like, honestly, they should just possibly just give it to you if your team sees it. I don't know, like, I guess you need to see it and proactively ping it on the map, so at least you're kind of paying attention. So they want to reward you for paying attention, but they don't want you to, like, be a bookkeeper, basically. They don't want you to have to sit there and feel, like, pressured to write down every single thing in chat or on a sheet of paper or whatever. So I think taking away the accounting aspect is probably good, while still maintaining, like, rewarding people for multitasking and paying attention to multiple things, which is really what a lot of what League is about. Okay. Vision system update, ally ward tracking. Okay, so it puts timers on the mini-map for you, which is good. You have to ping enemy wards to get the timers. I guess within 10 seconds of when you've seen it. Ability recommendations, or just attack it. Does that mean you have to literally attack it, or you can right-click it to get the timer? I'm not sure. Okay, ability level ups. Okay, so they're going to recommend what you should level up. So they're trying to make the game nicer for just newer people overall, which, again, is good. League has this reputation of being this kind of elite game, I think, for a lot of people that's not noob-friendly at all. And it's really hard to grow your game to replace people, because people are just going to leave over time. People talk about the game dying, but it's been around for so long, man. I mean, some of these people were, like, 16 when they started, and, you know, maybe 12 years later, they're, 28, they've got 5 kids, and, they're a doctor. Well, you can't really be a doctor at 28, but, they just got a busy-ass life, or they're playing something else right now. Like, that happens. That doesn't mean it's a low-quality game. It just means that people get busy with life sometimes, or they just want to play something else, not just because League is bad, but just for the novelty, or maybe there's just something else that just suits their taste better in that given moment, So that's okay. That's normal in every game, but you got to have people to replace the people that leave, right? You got to have new people that are coming in and checking stuff out, and it's really hard for new people to get into it because there's so many things you have to learn, right? So many items, over 160 champions or whatever the number is, and that's just the beginning, right? So I think that making it easier for newer people is a good thing. Okay, lane gold and experience changes. Mid is getting 1 less gold per minion, 14 minutes. What is that, like 100 gold? I guess. If the What's an average person gonna have? Well, I guess that's varies a lot, but maybe 120 minions at 14, maybe. If we're thinking silver or gold, so that's like 120 less gold. I mean, is that really going to matter? Maybe a little bit. They're just trying to tap the power of mid lane a bit to make it not as powerful. And mid lane should pay a tax because they're able to rotate and, you know, influence other lanes more so than anything, except for jungle, right? And so they have such an ability to take over the game with their macro. They probably need to be taxed on their guaranteed resources. So, because historically they have the guaranteed, right? Like they have their lane with all this gold coming in and experience, and they can also rotate and influence other parts on the map. The other champs who can do that a lot, who can rotate, are jungle, where historically they don't get as many resources. Now they're kind of changing that a little bit, but historically, because like the thing about lanes is lane minions are just always coming in. Right, but jungle camps, if they sit there, you're not getting a lot out of it. I guess the lane minions are dying too at the same time. But junglers are usually behind in levels and behind in gold in terms of mid. But mid has had a similar, not quite as much, but a similar level of power in terms of roaming. And then you have support, who is, you know, a resource-starved role that just doesn't have gold. You know, a lot of times doesn't have experience, but they can roam around as much as they want in theory and try to make plays. So the fact that mid has those resources and can roam has been probably too strong for a long time. So they're nerfing that a little bit more. Minions grant 2.5 to solo champions. I disagree with this. I am somewhat biased, but I feel like bot lane already just gets dumpstered in so many lanes. Because that's the best strategy. I've talked about this all the time, is just sit on bot lane. Gank them over and over again mercilessly, dive them, just beat the hell out of them. And the reason is, first of all, there's two people there. So if you have a successful gank, then you have an opportunity for 2 kills, versus if you go top or mid, you're only getting 1 kill. It's close to Dragon, which is the earliest, like, meaningful objective. Remember, Rift doesn't come online until 8 minutes. Dragon comes online at 5 minutes. So you've got this really early, powerful objective that's available. And just the nature of the champs bottom, right? So ADCs are really bad. The vast majority of them are really bad if they don't have a lot of gold. So if you starve them, if you shut them out, if you just keep ganking them over and over again, even if they just burn flash and have to run away and fall behind 20 CS, even if you don't get a kill, it's still a massive win because they're really bad if they're behind, but they're also really good if they're ahead. So it's like, it's a double win because you're putting your ADC ahead, you're giving them extra levels, extra gold, extra resources, and you are denying the enemy team those things. So it's like it's a double win. So that's historically almost always been the best strategy, is to just turbo camp bottom if you can get away with it. Depending on the vision situation and the champs. You know, there are situations where that's not true. I know someone's going to say in chat, but what if you have this Riven top lane who's 1,000 game one-trick Riven and they have 3 kills and your bot lane's 0-10, Ezreal, you know, Janna or something. It's like, yes, okay, play around the Riven, right? So sometimes playing around top is okay, but I'm just saying the default in a lot of cases structurally has favored bottom for those reasons I just mentioned. So I don't know why they want to put them even further behind, because this only affects bot lane, right? Minions now grant more experience to solo champions. Minion experience when shared between multiple champions unchanged. Okay, yeah. So basically they want mid lane and top lane to have more experience. You're already up a level and a half, sometimes 2 levels as a mid laner over bot lane. If you get a successful kill, and if that bot lane gets pushed off of one of their waves before they're level 6, I've seen a ton of times where, you know, the mid laner can be level 7 or something while the bot lane's 5, or the mid can be 6, just hit 6, while the bot lane's 4. It's like, do you really need more of an advantage than that? It's already going to be 3v2 or 4v2 bottom when you gank them or dive them. Like, my God, how weak do they need to be? So, again, I am a support player, so I am biased in that sense, but I don't know that that's the answer. Like, yes, ADC is really strong, right? In professional play, late in the game, they're really strong. I would say they're in one of their more balanced states they've ever been in, though. And yeah, a lot of supports are still good, even if they're behind in levels, but I just don't think this is it. I think that you need to just nerf, like, really overperforming ADCs. And if you look at them, I mean, like, what? I mean, if you look at the tier list, I don't think there are that many that stand out. And I might be wrong. I might be walking myself into a trap here, but I don't feel like there are that many ADCs that are over the line, right? And by over the line, usually the line I would say is probably like 53% is like, this champ's probably a little too strong. 54 is like way too strong. Like, that thing needs to be nerfed. And 55 is like, what the hell are you doing? If it has higher than like a 5% representation. So there's not that much. Neela is over the line a little bit, but she's new and she's weird. She's not like reflective of typical ADCs. But a lot of these ADCs are in normalized ranges, right? It's like 51, 50. There's probably several that are under 50. Right? Senna, Zaya, Kalista, Zeri, Ashe, Ezreal, Aphelios. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mainstream ADCs. Like, those all have pretty good pick rates. Well, Zeri doesn't anymore. But most of those have pretty good pick rates, and they're all under 50. So it's like, yeah, you got some that are over 50, right? How many was that? 8 or something? I can't remember. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I skipped her because, again, she's kind of an outlier with Neela. So, yeah, there are 12 that are a little bit over. But, again, the vast majority, if you were to average this out, is probably somewhere between 50 and 51%. That's fine. Right? Now, if we, like, supports, Janna might be a little high. Like, supports, there are some that are on the strong. Enchanters are strong. But, like, that's not a reason to just nerf freaking Moonstone. Or Shirelia's or something, right? Like, just nerf something about the enchanters if that's the problem, right? Like, Janna being 55 is a problem, right? Wow, Rakan's okay, I'm going to have to look at Rakan. If he's 53 now, I didn't think that melee thing was going to make that big of a difference. But, okay, I'll look at that for the tier list. Be sure to stay tuned for that. But yeah, okay, some of the supports are trending a little high, right? But, like, nerf something about support then. Like, the support items or something, if that's the problem. I just don't feel like nerfing the structural experience they get is, like, the deal, right? Versus, like, solo laners aren't that bad. Look, there's a lot. Now, mid lane is super diverse, but there's a lot of stuff here that's, like, over, well north of 52. Now, a lot of that has kind of a low play rate. If you look at pick rates, okay, people are picking some bad stuff. That's their fault, though, damn it. That is their fault. They're trying to play Rise just because they saw Faker do it at Worlds. That is not balanced. That's not bot lane's fault that they're screwing up the Rise. Okay, but anyway, so I don't like that change. I don't think that's that big of a deal. But okay, new and updated items. This one has changed, and I know we're getting close. I don't want to go over an hour, so I'll speed it up a little bit here. But, okay, we got kind of standard resistances. I don't know the cost efficiency of this. I'm just going to assume it's pretty close to 100%. For each second champion for each second a champion is in combat, you gain 2 MR and magic resist up to a maximum of 8. Okay, so that's 4 seconds in combat, I believe. Now, again, grammar is tough sometimes. We don't know if this is a maximum of 8 seconds in combat, or if this is a maximum of armor and magic resist. I think it's armor and magic resist because it's a multiple of 2. But if that's the case, this is way better than it was initially marketed. It was initially, you had to stay in combat for 10 seconds, which is crazy before you got the buff. But with this, it's 4 seconds in combat, and that's a lot more doable. So, you gain 8 magic and MR, which is like 300-ish golden stats. And then you become empowered, draining enemies around you for 3% of your max health. Now, I'm assuming this is per second. It doesn't say that. Is it just like you just do it once, 3%, everyone around you 1 tick, and increasing your maximum health by or increasing your resist by 10% till the end of combat. If that's 3% per second, that's incredibly powerful, I think. I mean, I guess that's on par with, I forgot the name, but the thing that charges up now over like 4 seconds that gives you true damage or whatever. This seems like it might be a little bit stronger than that, but I'm not 100%. That item doesn't see any play, hardly. So, it's okay. I mean, obviously on champs that can stick to you, like on tanks that are going to be sticky and are going to have a lot of max health, which is a lot of tanks, this could be really good. It's like a Sejuani, that type of champ. This is probably going to be your replacement for Sunfire, but it doesn't have that wave clear. It doesn't have that Balmy Cinder that Sunfire has, so just something to consider. But yeah, this is something to keep your eye on. This could be really strong. Just good sustained damage, effectively like Sunfire, possibly even more damage than Sunfire. I don't know. But yeah, this one could be good. Do we need that? Is it basically the same thing as Sunfire? Probably, except for the wave clear. So, Unspoken Paris. Okay, that's just the Orin version. Radiant Virtue, and I know I had Della B ask about this in chat. So same profile, exact same stats, gold cost, blah blah blah. Upon casting your ultimate, you transcend, increasing your max health by 10% for 9 seconds. Okay. Now I'm assuming this is gonna be nerfed or changed or something for like Udyrs or like Nidalees, Elises, things that have weird ultimates that have no cooldown. Probably gonna be changed for those. While transcended, I imagine. I mean, if not, that, could be abused. While transcended, you and your allies in 1200 range of you gain ability haste and heal for 1% every 3 seconds. So 3% total increase by 100% of the champion's missing health. It has an internal 60-second cooldown. Okay, so the Udyr thing doesn't matter. I think this is weak. I mean, ability haste that you activate and put on other people historically has not been that good. Look at Staff of Flowing Water. For example, as soon as they changed it from everybody getting movement speed to everybody getting this haste thing, immediately almost nobody got it after that. So I just don't... I don't see many universes where you would want this over this. Like, this just seems so much better on the vast majority of champions, or just other potential tank items. But yeah, I just don't think this is doing enough. It's like you are getting a little bit of HP, sort of whatever, but this is just too wimpy. 1% is too wimpy. If this was like 3% or 5% of their max health, that would actually be pretty good. 15% is still not that OP. I mean, that would be a heal for like, especially because you can only do it once every minute. That'd be a heal of like maybe 450, which is, I mean, that is still really good, but it is reduced by grievous wounds potentially. I don't know. 1%'s not the number though. I don't think 1%'s not it. It needs to be somewhat higher. Now, obviously, if you got the extra 100% if they're low, that would be OP. You don't want to be giving people 30% of their max health, but like maybe 3%, something like that. I don't know. 1 just seems really weak. And even just the concept doesn't seem that great because so much of it is just banking on people getting a lot of value out of this ability haste, which is not that great. Now, if it affected ultimates, maybe if it affected ultimates, that would be a little more relevant. Or if it was some like crazy number, if it was like 50% or something, yeah, like there's a number where you could make that relevant. But I just think that this is pretty far off as far as the numbers go. And then that's just the Orin version. Heartsteel, 3,200. Okay, a lot of health items. This is the one that everybody was complaining about. I think they renamed it. That was like super OP. So let's see what they've changed. Charge up a powerful attack against champion over 3 seconds while within 700 range of them. When it says A, I think it means all enemy champions, because you can hit multiple targets with this. The charged attack deals 125 plus 6% of your max health as bonus damage and grants you 10% of that amount as permanent health. Okay, so if you have like 3,000 health, then that's 180. So that's really like 325. If you get this, I mean, you're going to get it earlier than third item, but in a mid-game. Okay, grants you 10%. Okay, so you'd be getting 30 health. So you hit them for 300 once, you deal 30 health. Cooldown per target. Now, does it have to warm up every time? Or if you're in a... That's a really important question here. If you're in a team fight, I think it doesn't like reset. So basically, what I'm wondering, if there's 5 people there, you hit somebody once, do you have to be in combat for another 3 seconds to hit somebody again? But I think if you're just in combat, then they're all tagged and available to be hit. So you can just go boom, 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 and trigger this, 3 times. Or 4 times, I guess, with all those booms. So if you're hitting 3 people in a team fight with this, you'd be gaining like 100 health-ish and contributing like 900 damage. That still feels strong. Still feels really strong on a per-target cooldown. Now, it doesn't have any resists on it. It does have ability haste, but raw health is usually stronger than resist in a lot of circumstances because it combats spike damage a lot better, which is how people get blown out. Like, it hard counters assassins, I think, better than armor does. It doesn't get reduced by lethality. Like, it doesn't get diminished by lethality. It doesn't get diminished by Lord Dominic's or whatever. So raw health is very, very good, and that's why they've nerfed it most of the time. And there's just a lot of abilities that scale based on raw health, more so than armor and magic resist, I believe. So, and it's good against both magic and armor. Now, yes, you are more vulnerable to stuff that's like max HP, granted, but it's also, you're better against true damage with this. So, I think that raw health in general is probably the strongest defensive stat in the game, and this gives you a lot of it. So, now the 200% health regen is kind of wimpy. That can help you out in lane if you rush this as a mythic, though, especially if you're a melee into ranged matchup. So I think this is pretty good. I think you'll see this probably quite a bit. I don't know if it's like as turbo OP as initially thought, a lot of people thought, but it's definitely pretty good. And it is nice to see some like good raw tank items coming back in, because this whole season has just been like bruisers or basically tanks but not really being OP, right? Like Darius with Gore Drinker or Aatrox Gore Drinker. All that kind of stuff. So I'm glad to see that this doesn't have a lot of damage on these things, and that it just does raw damage. Now, or just does kind of raw defensive and healing. Now, this does do quite a bit, but it doesn't have AD on it or lifesteal or any of the other super toxic stuff. So I think it'll see some play. Okay, and then Iceborne Gauntlet. I know we're almost out of time here. Okay, so it's no longer a mythic, I think? Or, no, it is a mythic. Okay, so it's costing more. All of these things are very expensive, too, which kind of sucks because you're not going to have the ability to get them comfortably as a support. So, I don't know, like, making a mythic so hardcore anti-armor or anti-physical resist. Anti-physical, y'all know what I'm saying. Making something so hardcore, giving it a lot of armor and taking away from the magic resist, I don't like that choice. I've talked about this on stream several times. Like, if that choice doesn't also correspond with, like, the active and the passive and give you a specific reason for buying that item. If it's a general purpose item, so if it has a passive or an active that should be general purpose that you might want in most situations, then the armor or magic resist, the amount of that should not be enough to influence those situations. So what do I mean by that? For example, Frozen Heart, the fact that that's all armor makes sense, and I'm totally good with that because it's an anti-auto attack item, because the passive, says it slows attack speed, and it's got that rock solid passive that says reduces attack damage on you by a certain amount, right? So it's like you only are going to want that item anyways when they have a lot of attack speed champions, right? Because otherwise, why are you going to get it? So that makes perfect sense why it would be have a lot of armor on it, right? Or look at Randuin's. What is the passive? Okay, it reduces critical strike damage. Okay, it also has rock solid, which reduces, the auto attack damage that you take. Again, you're only going to want that in situations where they have a lot of critical strike and where they're auto attacking a lot. So the fact that it's all armor makes perfect sense. Or if you look at historically something like Spirit Visage, the fact that that's so heavy on the magic resist kind of makes sense because it has the regeneration on it, so it's an anti-poke item, and then it gives you extra shielding and magic resist. So it's supposed to help you against poke champions or help you against burst magic champions. So, like, again, that kind of makes sense. This doesn't make sense though to me, because why would you want this item? It's got a Sheen attack, so presumably you want this on a champion that's going to be casting abilities and staying in combat, but then also like is giving people slows. So I guess you want this in sticky or longer fights, and they're saying that physical damage is a much bigger threat in those sticky and longer fights, so that's why you want to get this. Maybe they're just saying that most magic damage is burst, and that you would want this item for sustained fights. I'm not sure if that's it. Like, you can use this for running people down, though, too. I don't know. I mean, I guess I can kind of see it, but if they have a sustained damage mage or something like that, they have, like, Cassiopeia or Victor, you know, stuff like that. There are a lot of mages that can still do quite a bit of sustained damage. It's going to feel really bad to get this item. So, and I just, like, the Mythic being so specialized is also really weird. It's like you're not rushing Frozen Heart or Spirit Visage on a lot of champions. You have time, you know, to establish your base, your core items, and then sort of pick out your specialty items for the situation, for the comp, and stuff like that later. So I just feel like Mythics, their stats should be much more generalized, and you should be picking them based on, you know, their active and their passive, right? And their Mythic bonus. So you already have enough variables to decide. You don't need this stuff up here making it weird. And they've said that in the past with Mythics. Like, they literally said that when they were designing it. We don't want this to be about the stats on these items. We want it to be about defining a playstyle, defining a way that you want to approach a matchup, that type of stuff. That's what we want to be interesting. That's what we want to play around. So we want to play around the Mythic bonus and the actives and passives and make the stats standard. And that's what it is on almost every Mythic items. I don't know why they're changing it here. When you look at most support Mythics, that's how they roll, right? Like Locket, and I always want to call it Eclipse, but the thing that does the increased damage, I know it's not Eclipse. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Those have the same stats. Or if you look at Moonstone, Shirelia's, and Mandate, those all have the same stats. So, like, you can adjust a couple of things, but this is an identity shift adjustment. This is like, hey, this is garbage against magic damage, but it's really good against physical damage. So I just don't like the direction of that. It's weird. But, okay, so this still has Bommies, but it doesn't say that it does the damage? No, it does. No, they're slowed. Okay, so it does not list the Bommy damage on here, but it says it builds out of Bommies. Does it lose the Bommy bonus, or did they just, like, run out of characters to type here? So I don't know why they wouldn't list it. Because that's important. Like, that's really, really important for, like, wave clear especially, that you get that Bommies flame stuff going on. Okay, so I assume it still has Bommies. So people will get it, and this will be a lot better in most matchups. Where you are going to get this, it's going to be better. So obviously, if you get it as a jungler, you're taking a lot less physical damage from the jungle. If you're getting this as a top laner, most of the time you're against physical damage. So this is probably good. This is probably a buff for a lot of champions. But it just creates weird situations where it's not going to be. Where there's, like, really, like, strange counter picks that emerge for this. So I don't like the philosophy, but as far as, like, how is it actually going to impact the game right now, I think it's probably buff. Okay, Rod of the Ages. I don't know why they're bringing this item back. I don't think it was particularly interesting to begin with. And, like, the thing that, if there was anything interesting about it, because it's just raw stats. Like, there's no active, there's no interesting passive, it's just stats. But the thing about this that made it interesting in the past, I know we're over time, but whatever, I'm gonna keep going. It's the preseason discussion. The thing that made it interesting to me was when it was cheaper, right? Was when you're thinking, okay, when it used to be like 2,600 gold, you're like, all right, so if I can get this early, I'm gonna sacrifice some of my early game, like, snowball potential. Right, so maybe I get this at 8 to 10 minutes, and I'm not going to be good until 20 minutes. But at 20 minutes, once I complete this and I get my second item, then all of a sudden I get a nice power spike. So you're basically getting a delayed power spike at, like, your first item in order to unlock more power later on. So I don't know. 3,200 gold just seems really weird to me. It is a mythic. I didn't notice that yesterday when I was talking on stream. I didn't notice it actually was a mythic. So that does help it a little bit, because I thought that it was really weird. Like, this has to be the first item that you get. You don't want to, start this at 25 minutes. So it's a mythic, but it doesn't have ability haste on it, but your mythic passive gives you ability haste. So I really wish it had ability haste, because part of the thing that sort of helps redeem this in terms of power spikes is you do have the catalyst, so that does heal you. It gives you the HP and it gives you the mana whenever you level up. So being able to leverage that with more ability haste, more spamming of spells, could be good potentially. But is it still like it's 100 every minute up to 10 times? Yeah. So it's going to be, 100 ability power and 500 health and 600 mana. I just feel like it's not good enough, right? Like, if we look at compare it to something like Leandri's. Now, Leandri's doesn't have the health on it, so that's a thing. But 10 minutes later, it's going to have 20 more ability power. This has ability haste, the other one doesn't, and this has 600 mana straight up right when you get it. You don't have to wait on it. And it has like 2 unique actives that do a lot more damage over time. So, I mean, I guess if you don't care about the ability haste and you just want more HP, maybe some, like Cassidon, maybe something like Twisted Fate. But I just think it's super niche, and it just feels really outdated. I don't know, like, something else needs to, like, stack on this, or just have some kind of active, like, once you complete it, you get some kind of crazy active or something. I don't know, it just feels really weird. It feels out of place. I just don't think a lot of people are going to get it. Okay. Especially because it's so expensive, 3,200. Again, it's competing with Leandri's, it's competing with Ludens, and I think those are just much more powerful immediately and go on. So, I don't know. Okay, Catalyst, again, same thing. Now, they're ruining this item for me. I really don't like this at all. Like, they're bringing back the old Abyssal Mask, and this was like a niche item for supports that I think was okay. Now, you wouldn't get it all the time, but like at 2,700 gold, you could get it in some situations, and it was a way to help your team out if you had a lot of AP. So if you had 2 AP champs that were doing really well, both your solo laners are AP, or maybe your jungler's Diana, your mid lane's Azir, or something like that. And if you're playing something like Rakan, who also does a decent chunk of magic damage for an engaged support, then like this could make sense, especially if they had 1 or 2 good magic users. So this was like mage on mage, like very niche type of item, but it was okay. It was affordable. The stats are all right, but now you can't get it because it's going to be 3,000 gold, so it's going to be built even less. It's got mana. I hate mana on tank items. Why would tanks don't need that? Tanks in 2022 don't need that. Maybe back in the day, like way back in the day, tanks needed it. But now, like, you can get, if you really need mana, I know someone's going to point out, but what about Singed? Or, there are some tanks that need mana, okay? But, like, the vast majority don't, and if you do, usually you can get it from runes, right? You can take biscuits, you can get Mana Flow Band, you can get Presence of Mind. Like, there are so many ways you could do, like, I don't know, Presence of Mind and the Tenacity, stacking Tenacity thing from the Precision Tree as sort of your minor runes or whatever, your 2 off runes. So I just think there are so many answers to mana now for tanks that I just hate seeing it on items because it's just not worth it. Like, yes, on paper, 300 gold for 300 mana is good, because it's like, well, mana really is a 1.4 value per based on the Sapphire Ruby crystal as its baseline. And yes, that's true. So yes, you're technically getting a value here, But the truth is, like, you just don't need that much mana most of the time. Most tanks, modern tanks, are fine on mana because of those runes, because of how often you have to back anyways to buy, to get more wards, or, you know, whatever. So I don't like it. I think people are going to get it even less. So this is definitely like a fail. I mean, they're right. A lot of people didn't get it anyways, but now it just kind of takes it off the table in some niche situations. And then Randuin's. Okay, so they're moving it back to a passive. Okay, so they're just basically doing old Randuin. So for this preseason, the new stuff they're doing is just bring back old stuff. That's it. Just bring back the Chemtech Dragon, change everything about it, bring back Rod, bring back Randuins. It's like, there's a reason, you know, bring back the old Abyssal Mask, basically. There's a reason these things were changed, or they were taken out of the game initially. They had problems, you know? So, just because, like, triggering nostalgia and going back with certain TV shows, like Stranger Things or something like that, just because that's successful doesn't mean it's successful in League. I know there's like classic WoW, you know, is successful with the nostalgia, and there have been some remakes that have been successful, but like, no one's like really been asking for this or getting hyped, you know, about the, oh man, they're bringing back old school Randuins or something. I'm so glad they're doing that. Instead of giving us something new, they're just recycling something old. It's like, all right, man. Sure. I mean, yes, this is probably a better version of the item. They're lowering the armor by a crap load, though. But they're giving it the HP back. So, I mean, they're just pretty much reverting everything about it. Okay. I mean, it'll see some play on tanks. Sunfire. So it's no longer a mythic. It doesn't have the thing where you auto-attack and do extra damage, which I think was really weird and made some champions like, you know, Master Yi with this or Diana with this like strangely too strong. So yeah, I don't think that non-tanks should be building Sunfire. I think it's really toxic, so I'm glad they're getting rid of that. Okay, so no ability haste on it. It's got that, you know, massive armor thing going for it again, which is kind of weird, but okay, at least it's not a mythic. 400 health. They're lowering the cost. That's good. 400 less is a lot less. So you're getting 20. You're getting 15 armor, but you're losing 35 magic resist. So effectively, you're losing 20 resistances, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 gold, which is about what they're lowering this by. And you're losing 50 health, which is another 100 something gold. But it's a cheaper item in general, and you should pay a premium for cheaper items. Stuff that's cheaper should not be as efficient, in my opinion, because you're able to get it faster on the curve. So I think this is about right in terms of stat analysis. Now, you are losing the 20 ability haste. I forgot about that. Okay, that's actually really bad. That's like 400 something extra gold. So you're basically losing 900 gold worth of stats, and they're only compensating you 400. Ugh, that's really bad. Let me see the numbers on this real quick. Sorry, I haven't done the numbers on anything, but there's so much changing about this. Okay, so we've got 400 times 2.6. That's the value of health. 1040. And then the armor is 1,000 plus 1,000. Armor is 20 each. That's it. Ooh. And it doesn't do extra damage to monsters? That's bad. And that, I'm assuming that also applies to the Frozen Fist or whatever the hell that Iceborne Gauntlet up there. So that's going to hurt wave clear in the jungle. But they are, like, presumably making it easier for everybody in the jungle. So this can still help you in the lane. But man, that's 2040. You're paying, what, 600? 750 gold? 760 gold. For this item. For what? For the immolate? That's really bad. That's really, really bad from a cost perspective. 750 for wave clear. That's not even that great anymore in the jungle. Yeah, I think it's in the dumpster. I don't think anyone's ever going to get this item. I think it's done. People are just going to get that if you want like sustained damage. I mean, I guess like you are getting the extra damage. I don't know the numbers on that. So you are getting the ramping up like damage. What is it priced at right now? Oh, I guess these things are already in effect. But like, what was the previous number? Wait, it has this, or are they just not updated? It does not have flame touch anymore. Okay, so they just haven't updated this yet. But it should be live right now. The preseason should be live, so they just haven't updated the wiki. Okay, so I forgot what I was looking for here. But yeah, this is the number. So you're getting like stacking damage. Oh, I was trying to see how much you're paying for that stacking damage. So it's 95% efficient. So you're paying 200. You're paying 150 gold for it right now, without the mythic passive. So you're paying 150, and now they want you to pay 750, and it doesn't work against monsters as much, and you don't get the on attack, which is huge in a lot of cases, doing the bonus damage. I don't think so. I think it's done. Again, there might be some situations where you might see it, but it's looking really bad. Chemtech is all magic resist and no armor now, so that's kind of weird. It is 2,800. It is a mythic. They got rid of the refuel thing, which honestly I can't even remember what that is. I think it was extra damage. They're taking the ability haste down to 10. They're taking up the health. They're taking the cost down. So this one is a little more compelling cost-wise, right? So you're gaining resistances are neutral, basically. Magic resist is worth slightly less. It's 18 gold per instead of cloth armor, but whatever. Close enough most of the time. 10 ability haste, about 200 gold worth of value. You're getting 100 gold-ish with the health increase. But it's 400 gold cheaper. So this is something people might actually get. And this probably should be a little bit cheaper just because magic resist overall, not only is it like literally worth less as far as 18 gold, but in most comps you don't need as much of it. It depends on how much that refuel was worth. But this can give you the engage that some champs might need. Even some supports might get this. If you really want to be able to engage. It still is expensive at 2,800. Again, it's weird that a mythic is so all in on one resistance type. But oh, it's a legendary item. Okay, so it's not a mythic. So you're losing the legendary like extra gold value out of that. So that kind of turns the tables a little bit too. That's another thing with Sunfire is you're losing your mythic bonuses. So that 750 doesn't even include the gold that you lose off of mythic bonuses or the flame touch that you've lost. So again, this is just like straight dumpster fire. This, like, being able to hardcore engage, especially if you don't have to use a mythic slot for it, that actually could potentially be pretty good. I'm actually situationally maybe on Rakan. I don't know, because now I don't have to worry about choosing Shirelia's or, like, Chemtech. Probably not, but I don't have to worry about choosing that. Now, I've also had the choice just to do Dead Man's Plate or something like that if I really wanted to before. But this does have 10 ability haste, so there might be some situations. I still think it's probably going to be towards something like Zeke's or Knight's Vow second in a lot of situations. But if you just really need that engaged, and if they have a lot of magic damage, maybe this is on the table. This is interesting. I don't. My instinct is that it's probably not great enough to see a lot of play. But maybe on like your traditional, like your Hecarim, your Deer, those types of champs, now they can get like Frozen Fist or something and Turbo Chemtech. Maybe that's a good combo. Okay, Aegis gold cost is down, which is good. That item feels horrible to buy. Ravenous Hydra, attack damage is down. Total AD for melee champions, 30%. For ranged. Is that nerfed? Gain so much on minion kills, increase to twice that amount for champions. Oh, so it's a stacking item. Huh, that's really weird. Is that on Tiamat too? Okay, you don't get stacks with Tiamat. It's just for Ravenous. Because this makes you want to get it early, right? So you get those stacks, but then you lose them. I was like, is this like old school Bloodthirster where you get the stacks, you get to keep them the whole time? I still don't think people are gonna get it. It doesn't have any. I'm trying to remember. I don't think it has anything defensive on it. Like there are some like Camille will get this item. There are some champions that will like it. Ezreal like does get it sometimes for the wave clear with like Tiamat, but a lot of champs that get this are gonna get it like third or fourth item, and that feels really late for something that you're supposed to be stacking. So I just don't think a lot of champs are gonna rush this first or even second item. So it's weird. Again, it just doesn't seem like they have a good sense of like timing on some of these items and like what the meta is. It is preseason, you know, they can adjust numbers and things like that, but it just seems too specific early on. Just like, you're gonna get a mythic first. This can't substitute for a mythic, I don't think, early on. And it's just like so out of your way. It's so expensive. I think it's like 3,400. It's not like Magi's, right? Like Magi's is you can just buy the ring early, which is already very gold efficient, so there's not that much opportunity cost. And if you start doing well, then you can just turn it into Magi's, and it's like, all right, cool. There's a stacking item. It's kind of risky, but it's not a ton of gold. You are already kind of priced in with the ring, so like it's risky, but it sort of makes sense. This is like too much of an investment for you to like for things to not go your way. Like you can start building this, you know, at 10 minutes when you think you're ahead, and then you've died 3 more times, and all of a sudden you're behind, and you're like, but you've got it halfway done, so you kind of have to finish it. It's just really weird. I don't like it. Okay, still got a cleave, stuff like that. Spear of Shojin, everybody's favorite like OP item on Renekton that nobody else used. Hardly. It's like nobody wanted this. Who the hell wanted this item back, man? They're like bringing back all this stuff that like nobody cares about or nobody likes. New items. Or bring back like Banner and ZZ Rod. That's controversial. A lot of people don't like those items either. But at least those are unique items in some situations that could be good. They offer, you know, macro items. But with Spear, 3,400 cost, super expensive, low AD, low health, like pretty low health. Not a mythic though. And this is just way too much text here too. Non-ultimate spells gain an extra such and such ability haste for melee champions and such ability haste for ranged champions, reduced to such and such ability haste for melee champions for spells with immobilizing effects. So stuff that has CC on it, the stuff you might actually want to be able to spam, it doesn't even really work on those. Okay, so like you have 200 AD, you get 24 extra ability haste. And so it's kind of like the old Navori Quick Blades, which nobody got. It's bruisery though. Navori Quick Blades was not for bruisers, but it's like who wants this? Again, ability haste, when you're going out of your way, the opportunity cost is you're giving up other items that could give you more health or give you more survivability or give you more damage. Getting ability haste instead feels bad. Like it's a trap, especially non-ultimate. If it was ultimate stuff, if like attacking people reduced the cooldown on your ult or whatever, yeah, maybe that's useful. But this just seems really like they're just playing it way too safe with some of these non-ultimate ability haste items. Now, I guess you could pair this with that other item, that like reduces ability haste when you activate it or whatever. Maybe that's the theme. But it has diminishing returns on it, right? Like your first 50 ability haste is much more meaningful in how much it's reducing your cooldowns than your next 50 ability haste. So Anyway, so for example, if you, and to take this to bigger numbers to make it easy, if you have 100 ability haste, it's going to reduce, your cooldowns are going to be at 50%. If you have 200 ability haste, your cooldowns are going to be at, I think it's 34%. 300 ability haste, your cooldowns are going to be available in 25% of the time. So it's getting 75% reduction. So it's just the same way that armor and magic resist works. That's just a little curve. So yeah, I don't know. It just feels really weird to try to get it. And then gain such and such movement speed based on your percentage missing health. 15% max movement speed permanently, but not if you're at full health. I just don't think so. It's so expensive at 34. There's like no crit, no lethality, no proc damage, no resistances. It's just like a really weird, like, who wants this? It's a really weird, confusing item. No lifesteal. It's like the stats seem good, but just nobody's going to get it unless the numbers are just like insanely over the top. It was like, what was that mask item that like mages were getting early on in the season because it was super overtuned numbers wise, and that only lasted like a patch or two, and then they nerfed it and like nobody gets that item anymore. It's just like these collection of weird like ability haste machine gun items just never work. Like nobody gets Navori Quick Blades except for like Trendamir. Like there's always one or two champions that can abuse items like this, but why are you making items for just one or two champions? Just, if those champions need help, just buff them. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. And that's been their philosophy. That's the whole reason they took this thing out initially, was they said it was too niche. It was super OP on Renekton back in the day when it was better, when basically you could activate it or something and then, pretty much do Renekton stun like 2 or 3 times in a row and like one-shot people late game. It reduced the cooldown of abilities by like 25% or something. But they said they just don't want to make super niche items that only like 2 or 3 champions are going to use. They want to have wider spread adoption situational items. But so all of these items they're bringing back or reworking, almost all of them are niche. Spear of Shojin, super niche. It's probably going to be, 5 champions or less, or this might be part of their core build. Same thing with Ravenous. Turbo, that one's actually okay. Sunfire, the style of item is good, it's just the numbers are bad. Randuin's super niche, but like situational. People will get that against crit stuff. It's not going to be a core thing, but it's, it's okay. Abyssal, super niche, badly designed. Rod of the Ages, or not badly designed, but just bad numbers. Rod of the Ages, super niche. Very few champs going to get it. So it's like a lot of this stuff is not going to have like really widespread appeal. Radiant, probably, I think it's just bad, most likely, but could be super niche. So I just don't see a lot of widespread appeal outside of maybe Chemtech being a pretty, like, decent thing. The Frozen Fist, but that was already, like, pretty good. So yeah, I don't think so. Navori Quick Blades, again, too niche of an item. No crap. So why are you bringing back all these other niche items if that's your philosophy? If you recognize that's bad. And, like, what they're doing, I think, is still making it niche. We're adjusting it so that it competes with Infinity Edge as a defining item. It's not going to compete with it. Spoiler alert, everyone's going to go for more damage. It's going to be Infinity Edge. Trading DPS for stronger spells and lower cooldowns. So you can't build this with Gensu's. Okay. Oh, because it takes away your critical strike chance. I think. Yeah, or Gensu's takes it away. Ability haste is 20. If you have at least 60% critical strike, your attacks reduce your non-ultimate ability. So again, it's saying non-ultimate ability cooldowns. It needs to be ultimate, boys. Because those are the kind of people that would want this. Is people who have a big-time ultimate that also want to spam abilities when they go in and engage. It needs to be ultimate. It wouldn't be OP. It's fine. Like, that's... Because people who want ability haste, one of the big draws where it's actually good to have a lot of ability haste is for ultimates because the cooldown is so long, right? On normal abilities, having 50 extra ability haste or whatever the number is when something is already a 6-second cooldown, it's like, okay, cool, you brought it down to like 1 second, which is good in some situations. But being able to take an ultimate cooldown from 120 seconds down to like 70 or something like that is a lot more meaningful, I think, in many situations. So, or actually, my math was kind of bad. Y'all know what I'm saying? Like knocking off 20 or 30 seconds from an ultimate is going to be a lot more meaningful than knocking off, in a lot of cases, like 1 second from something that already has a low cooldown. Because it gives you a much wider window of difference. Anyways. Okay, your attacks reduced by 15%. Your abilities deal up to 20% increased damage based on your critical strike chance. Okay, so it doesn't even do 60% like crit. Okay, so it allows crit to interact with your other abilities, even if they can't normally crit. Okay, so one champion that jumped out immediately to me who might want this because here's the thing: if you're stacking critical strike on champions that use a lot of abilities, that's historically bad because most abilities can't crit in the game, right? So like one notable exception to that is Xayah, where her E can crit. Right, so when she rips all the feathers back, that does scale with crit. Like, they can't actually crit, but it scales with critical strike. And there are, I guess, some of the newer champions, probably more of their abilities scale with critical strike. Some of those champions that have, like, a novel to read them. Aphelios, something in there probably scales with critical strike. So I'm sure there is some stuff, especially with newer champions, that do scale with crit. But a lot of abilities don't. And so that's why it's so awkward to buy critical strike for those champs. It's like this item does help some, right? Where your abilities deal 20% increased damage based on critical strike. But you have to have this item purchased for critical strike to matter on those abilities. And this is a third item, right? So if you're playing something like Ezreal, who has a lot of abilities, do you really want to get, like, what would even buy? I don't know if Kraken triggers off of your Q or not, if it's like a third hit. Maybe Kraken or Gale Force or something if you're trying to blow them up. Some kind of crit item, shield bow, whatever. And then what are you getting after that? Like Phantom Dancer, maybe? If you're thinking of crit. And then you're going to get this after Phantom Dancer. It's like the problem is for your first two items, most of that crit is wasted on these ability power champions because their abilities can't crit. Right? And so they typically will get stuff that gives procs like Mirror Mana, or they'll get lethality because lethality affects abilities as well as auto attacks. So it's like, yeah, by the time you complete this third item, 30 minutes into the game, you get some kind of benefit on those abilities at a 20% rate, but it's too late. Like, you've already had this weird ass itemization the entire game that's been suboptimal just to have a little cute interaction later on. So, maybe on Xayah or other champions where their stuff, their abilities naturally scale with crit, which, again, is a very niche audience, maybe you get this. But even in those cases, usually those champions have some interaction with Infinity Edge, too, where their abilities are going to do even more damage from Infinity Edge. So, you would just want Infinity Edge, I think. Now, I don't know. The ability haste does matter on this, where Infinity Edge doesn't have ability haste. And your abilities do 20% increased damage, which I think is the same as Infinity Edge, right? Doing 20% extra damage on crits. I can't remember the exact number on it. But, yeah, I just don't think most people are going to get it. Again, maybe Tryndamere. Maybe Xayah. There are some that will do it, but it seems super, super niche. Again, probably less than 5 champions would get this in 50% or more of their games. Okay, Cho'Gath. Okay, he just has a bigger feast to kind of match the execute on Smite. Alright, Lilia. She's melee. Base health is down. Why does that... I'm trying to think of the items where that would matter. I know there's probably some things. I'm kind of drawing a blank here. Don't need gore. Like demonic. Okay, so it's good for demonic. I believe demonic will do extra damage. I don't know. There might be a couple other items where that's relevant. Demonic's probably the biggest one. Now the Luden's demonic build is going to get better. She's already pretty good, I think. I don't know her win rates, but I seem like she's relevant in a lot of games that I see her in. Okay. True damage to non-champions. Okay. So again, trying to like line up with Smite. Sure. Recon. I don't think this matters. Like, this can help you execute, I guess, with Relic Shield a little bit better. But a lot of the items that had melee, like, bonuses to them, so Knight's Vow and Zeke's are the two big ones that jump out to me. Those have been changed where it doesn't matter if it's melee or not, I believe, these days. So I don't think there's a lot of situations where that's going to matter. Glacial Augment, it would matter. You'll get more of a slow off of Glacial Augment if that's what people are running. Okay, I got to look. I know we're already at like 1 million minutes into this, but like, why does Recon have such a high win rate for Recon? I gotta know. The suspense is killing me. I teased it earlier. Is it just lucky, or is it like new builds? I don't think there's anything that new. I think it's about the same. What? I guess it just hasn't updated yet. He's not usually 53%. He's usually like 50-ish. So I guess there's nothing really new with this build. I was like, okay, are people like doing Glacial now, or people are trying out the Radiant Virtue, I guess? I mean, we're going to be trying out stuff on stream. I don't know. Maybe it's better than I think it is. Anyways, I don't want to get too sidetracked, but... Okay, Summoner Spell, Smite, does a little bit more. Okay, sure. It's based on companion stacks. Turret adjustments. More plate money. But they are more difficult to kill. Okay. It's fine. Champion stat cleanup. Okay, behavioral systems. Okay. So, trying to penalize people faster for bad behavior. I think that's good. Surrender time, sure. Okay, now this is something I talked about on stream as well. I do not like this change. And I know we're already at a minute or an hour 30, whatever. But okay, so their goal here, I believe. So let's just read it. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I think they give a TLDR right here. We think the best version of League is not one where you metagame based on players in your lobby, okay? We also want to avoid using someone else's win or loss streak or playing a different champion to force a dodge or pressure others to dodge when your setup doesn't meet perfect conditions. Okay, so basically what they're saying is they don't want players in their lobby to dodge. So they want to reduce dodges. That's a goal, which is admirable. Dodges are very annoying. Nobody likes dodges, right? Except if you are the one who dodges and you feel like you have to for various reasons. So, but the ultimate goal is to reduce dodges across the board. That's what they want to accomplish here, is to reduce dodges. Now let's see if what they're doing is going to accomplish that. So they're saying that we don't want to use someone else's win rate or loss streak or playing a different champion. So playing off-meta picks or stuff that they're bad on to force a dodge. So they don't want people to dodge because they see that someone has a low win rate on a champion, or that they're on a loss streak, or that they're just playing something weird. Okay, so let's think about it, at least in my experience, why would people dodge? So, number one, if someone in the lobby is just super toxic and is saying they're gonna, like, you know, run it down middle or AFK or whatever, you know, that's number one. So just being able to read the chat, seeing that it's doomed for whatever reason. Now the other one, if you think, so you can look at these stats and then dodge because your team doesn't look like they're going to be able to win. So let's unpack that a little bit. What would be reasons? So you could see off meta champs, you could see low win rates, you could see streaks. I would say most people are not going to dodge based on a streak. In my experience, at least in like platinum and gold and lower. First of all, the vast majority of the population does not dodge. Okay, people are not going to dodge no matter what. Like, they're going to go in. Someone can say, hey, I'm going to AFK this game, or I'm going to run it down middle. I don't care. I hate you all. And people will still play the game, and then they'll just report them. And then they'll just be mad about it, right? So that's like 99% of people are going to do that. There's just very, very few dodges. Now, as you get up into Challenger and Masters, that's different. And you could argue maybe that needs to be treated differently. Kind of like no duo queue. Maybe they should have no dodge in Masters or Challenger. Because the queue times are already so long, 15 minutes at least, and most people are like pretty competent on most meta champions. Like, they may not be as good, but like, it's playable. Like, they know how to play around a weak matchup. They know how to still be relevant, all that stuff. They're smart players. They're really good players, right? So they could probably work around dodges. You're not going to have as many like turbo AFK, run it down disco Nunu people in Challenger as you might have in like Iron. So I could see an argument just for getting rid of dodges, period, and like Masters Plus, potentially. But the thing that I see a lot of the times and that inspires me to decide whether or not to dodge is if I see 3 things that are going wrong, in a game that I'm likely to dodge. And a lot of times that can be weird champions. That's a huge thing, right? You see Teemo jungle, it looks bad. But if I can see the person's stats, and if they have a good, track record on that champion, I'm much more likely to stay in the game. So I might see Teemo jungle, and, I might be thinking to myself, all right, man, this dude's trolling. I gotta dodge this. This guy's not taking this game seriously. He's just gonna, AFK or whatever. But then if I look at his stats and I see, all right, he's 70% win rate with Teemo in the jungle, I don't think it's good. But maybe he's figured out something I don't know. And then I can look around and then I can see, okay, our mid laner is also 70% on Azir. And, my bot lane Varus is 60%. So because I can see all these stats, I have enough information to say, hey, you know what? This one person's doing something weird, but I'll go ahead and play it. I think we can carry him. Or maybe he's figured out something I don't know about. He's got the secret sauce. He's got a lot of experience on the champ. I'll give him a shot. Right now, a lot of times that's a bad idea, and I lose anyways. That 70% Teemo will still go 0-10. But I'm more likely to stay in the game if I know all the information about people. I'm at least as likely to stay in the game. Right? But if I don't know that, if they take that information away from me, all I have to go on is, okay, this person's playing something weird. I think I'm getting trolled. Right? Because I don't have any stats to go with it. So I don't think this is going to have the intended effect of less dodges. I think more people are probably, or at least as many people are going to dodge because they just don't know. And again, I don't think a lot of people are dodging because of win rates or streaks. I think it's because of off-meta champions. If you ask people who dodged, number one, what is the number one reason you dodge, is someone's going to say someone picked a garbage champion in this role. That's the number one thing. And if you don't have any info about it, then I think that's just going to lead to more dodges. So we'll see. It could be the reverse, right? You could see someone playing a meta champion that just has a low win rate on the champion, that doesn't have a lot of experience on the champion or whatever. So you see, first time Lucian bottom or Lucian bottom with, 45% win rate or whatever. That does happen for sure. So again, that might save some people from dodging. But again, if you had to ask people, let me know in the chat, what do you think when you're thinking about a dodge? What's more likely, all else being equal? What would be more likely to make you dodge? Someone having a 45% win rate on a meta champion, or somebody picking something that's really off meta and weird in the role without knowing anything else about that person, right? As far as their win rate, or how often they've played the champion or whatever. What's more likely to make you dodge? 45% Lucian or Teemo in the jungle that you see? What's going to make you think this is bad? Or we're in trouble in this queue, right? What's going to be the worst feeling? For me, it would be Teemo jungle without any other information. But I've got the Teemo hat back here. We did for a cosplay back in the day. I think Teemo, he's an interesting character, but my God, I don't know. Maybe there are some Teemo jungles out there, but it just feels bad. So I don't think it's going to have its intended effect. And anytime you're removing information from people, I think it's bad. So if it's a problem in like Challenger that people are dodging too much, just get rid of it in Challenger. But for everybody else, I think the system was fine as is. Like a 30-minute dodge is already really, really bad. I haven't taken almost any second dodges this entire season because it's 10 points and you only gain 14 or 15 points per game. So statistically, it just doesn't make any sense to take a second dodge. I didn't even use my first dodge a lot of the time. So yeah, I don't like it. Again, most people don't like dodges, but I don't think this is getting at the heart of why there are no dodges. They could just get rid of dodge, period. I don't like that way either. I think giving somebody at least one game as an out relatively cheaply is good, but whatever. Is it really going to matter that much? Probably not, because most people don't dodge to begin with, but maybe challengers will like this more. The thing is also, a lot of challenger streamers, people are watching them, people know which lobby they're in. So again, that specific change they're making with anonymity is not really going to change the challenger or masters meta that much for people that stream, especially. Okay, game remake. Okay, yes, just giving more people like just a smoother experience with when to remake and how to remake, and the same thing with AFK surrender times. I think those are good changes. Okay, that's pretty much it. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments. Like I said, it's not that this is bad or that a lot of it is ruining the game or anything overall. I just think that most of these are, neutral to maybe slightly bad. So just for the really quick recap, I think Chemtech probably not going to matter that much. Basically a neutral change. Jungle change, probably skewing towards good overall, especially for newer players to make the jungle safer. So I think it's good from a gameplay experience and from getting people to play jungle. The one thing I'm concerned with is this going to encourage just non-interactive turbo farm junglers like the Karthus or like the Udyr Hecarim that can lead to really boring pro play for people to watch and really unsatisfying interactions when certain champions just become unkillable and they just run away from you all the time like Udyr. So good philosophy, good approach, but I'm not sure if the meta that this is going to encourage is going to be good for the game as far as like the experience of the game. Okay, so there's that, and then communication tools, good. I think, extra communication, always a good thing. Extra information, good. Top changes. Okay, so they're trying to make top better. I talked about this. I think this is bad. To me, I don't read this as helping top out. I read this as letting people dumpster bottom even more. So yeah, this is honestly, the numbers are so small, it's probably not going to matter, but I don't really like the giving mid less gold is fine. It's not enough to be consequential at most elo brackets, I don't think. The experience, I don't know the breakpoints on that, but don't really like that as much. This thing, Jock Show, potentially a really good item, could be the default sort of bruiser tank item. Pretty good design, like I said, it's like that AP item that gives the true damage or whatever. Not a lot of people get it, but this one for tanks could be the go-to, especially with Sunfire being in the dumpster. I could see this potentially being really good. Radiant Virtue, again, I'm not super high on this item, but people were getting it on Recon. We'll see. It's okay. It's an okay item, but I think people really overvalue the ability haste stuff. But maybe it's better than I think it is. That's totally possible. Heartsteel, really strong item. I think you're probably going to see, like, a lot of the meta is going to be that Jock Show plus this. Because Jock Show is your max health. Yeah, if you're max health, not theirs, yours. So, obviously, stacking health really good if you're going to get Jock Show, and this is sort of the premier health stacking item. So this, and then maybe even something like Warmogs, which people haven't gotten in a long time, but obviously Warmogs would be really good with this too. So then you're going to have like 3 items, 4,000 health tanks, deleting everybody. So that That would be kind of, my prediction we could see. Is that good for the game? Probably not. So we'll see. Okay, Frostfire Gauntlet, Iceborne Gauntlet, whatever. Still pretty good. A little bit weird with the full armor. I think most people are going to get the Jock Show instead. But if you want to be a little bit stickier, if you're like a Mundo or something, you need help sticking to people, maybe this is okay. It'll be used. Rod of the Ages, very niche, garbage. You get it on Cassiopeia, or not Cassiopeia, Cassidon. But like I said earlier, mana is not that hard to come by in a lot of cases. A lot of other good mythic items also have mana like Leandri's, and you have plenty of rune options. Presence of Mind, Mana Flow Band, Biscuits, all of these things can help you with mana. So I just don't think this item is worth it for most champs, especially because it doesn't have ability haste on it. Abyssal Mask, really bad change. I don't think most people are going to get this. Most people are already getting Force of Nature or Spirit Visage, who wanted the Magic Resist, and now they have the other heavy Magic Resist option with Turbo Chemtech. I think all three of those items are going to be way more popular than Abyssal, so I just don't like it. I wish they would have doubled down on the aura, on empowering your magic damage allies to do more damage, something like that, but as it stands, not good. Randuin's, very situational. This is fine, but maybe a fourth item on tanks if they have, really fed ADC or whatever. Sunfire, Dumpster Fire, I don't think most people are going to get that. Turbo Chemtech, interesting. The full 50 magic resist, kind of bad. Or kind of, not necessarily bad, but very niche. But this is a really powerful effect, and you're not paying that much for it, I don't think. From a cost perspective, it does have some ability haste on it. You're not losing resistances like you were with Sunfire. It was already 25-25 instead of 35-35. The cost is going down, not up. So I think this is pretty good. Ravenous, weird change. Probably same champs are going to get it. Shojin, one or two champs might be OP on it. It's going to be irrelevant for most people. Same thing with Navori Quick Blades. And then moderate changes. So Aaliyah is pretty significant with Demonic. But the rest of these specific champ changes aren't that big of a deal. And yeah, that's it. So thank you very much. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Come by, check out the stream. Sorry this ended up being so long, but it is the preseason patch, and I haven't done one of these in a while, so I just wanted to give you guys as much details as I could. But thanks, have a good day, and I'll see you next time.